In this 10th session of our 3ds Max training series, I'm here with you. Well, we agreed to continue with Edit Poly today. Hello and welcome, dear students. I hope you've been having a great time. So first, I'll create a box. Alright, let me just go ahead and increase its segments a little bit right here. And I'll press F4 so I can see them. Well, maybe this is enough. First, let me explain a bit about Poly and Edit Poly. In the 3ds Max workspace, we work with surfaces bounded by edges. If you've noticed, we have points that we call vertex. And we have lines that are called edge. Yes, these lines are called edges. I'll convert this into a poly as well. Now we have surfaces called poly or mesh. What's the difference between poly and mesh? Well, in the past, polygons didn't exist in 3ds Max, and people had to work with meshes. The main difference between a mesh surface and a poly surface is that a poly surface is bounded by 4 edges, whereas a mesh surface is made of triangular surfaces bounded by 3 edges. And this brings us to the point that a professional and precise model is one where, if it's polygon-based, all the polygons are bounded by 4 edges. And if we are going to work with meshes, they should be bounded by 3 edges. Right. Well, we usually work with polygons, and we try our best to keep the surfaces strictly 4-sided. In cases where we have to, and there is no other choice, then it's okay to have a 3-sided shape or 2 among all the surfaces. It's not a big deal. But it shouldn't exceed 4 edges. And as much as possible, like I said, it shouldn't be less than 4 edges either. Now, it might rarely happen that you are forced to have a 3-sided polygon. But overall, you should try to prevent this from happening. Alright. I've created a box now. How do I convert this into a polygon? A set of polygons? Or edit poly? Edit poly means that we have a volume made up of polygons, and we can apply our edits on it. As you can see, right now we can't do any specific edits on this cube, other than moving it around or completely rotating it. That's why we can convert it into an edit poly. There are 2 ways. First, I can go into this Modify panel and see that I have a box here. Its name is displayed, and its parameters are also listed here for me, so I can increase or decrease them. For instance, I'll just add one here. Well, I can right-click here, and in the right-click menu, choose Convert to, and convert it. If you look closely, the first option says Editable Mesh, and the second says Convert to Editable Poly. We have 2 other options as well, which we'll explain later. We work with Edit Poly, so we convert it to an editable poly. Now you notice that in our modifier stack, The box is gone. And now we have an edit poly with subobjects like vertex, edge, border, polygon, and element. Alright, now I'll press Ctrl+Z to undo and go back. I can also open this modifier list and apply an edit poly here. And you can see that it gave me the exact same settings that belong to the editable poly. Right over here. So there are two ways. What's the difference between them? You might have guessed that we still have access to the initial box we created, meaning we can change its dimensions. But in the other method, we no longer had access to our box. Well, I'm going to convert this into an edit poly so we can work with it. Alright. As you saw, it has several subobjects. I already explained vertices. And if you remember from our modifiers session, I mentioned that each of these has a shortcut using number keys. So 1 is the shortcut for vertex, 2 for edge, 3 for border, 4 for polygon, and 5 for element. Alright. I'll come over here, and while edit poly is still selected, I'll take a copy of this edit poly just to keep it handy. Alright. As a copy. Very well. I'll select the original edit poly. And right here you can also select them. Vertices, edges, borders, polygons, and element. So we had these in two different places. One place here, and another place here. Likewise, we can use the numbers on our keyboard as shortcuts. 1. Vertex. Notice how when I selected vertex, my vertices showed up as blue dots, meaning I can select them now. Edge means these lines. You see that now these are selected. 3. Border. Well, we don't currently have a border on this surface, but I will explain it to you later. Polygon, meaning each one of these is a polygon that can be selected. And element. Element recognizes this entire mass, which is separate from any other volume, as an element for me. I can go into this element section, and if you select the Attach option under Edit Geometry, I'll select Attach and click. And click on another shape. I'll select Attach and click on another shape, and that shape gets attached. Note that if you recall, when making a copy, I chose the Copy option, because if it's an instance, it won't be added. It has to be a copy. I'll right-click to exit the Attach tool. So we have one element here and another element right here. Alright, let's go to Vertex. You see I can select that vertex, the vertices on that section, as well as the vertices on this section. Okay. So what features does this give us? First, you can move vertices around. Any vertex you like, you can move along any axis and displace it. As simply as that, you can drag to select. You can draw a selection window and move them all together. Or you can even rotate them. For example, I'll select these together and rotate them. Or you can do the exact same thing with scale. Make them bigger or smaller. And you can do all these exact same operations with edges as well. Select them, make them smaller, make them bigger, and or rotate them. Move them around. All right. You can do the same with polygons, or obviously with an element as well. However, below this selection section, we have a set of options available to us that relate to how we make selections. The first option I want to explain is ignore backfacing. If, for example, we select these vertices, right now I'll draw a selection window and pick these vertices right in front of me. But if you look closely and we go to the back, we see that vertices on the back of our volume that happen to be inside the selection window were also selected. This ignore backfacing option helps you prevent this from happening. So, if you only want the visible ones right facing you to be selected, you check that box, and then draw your selection window. Now, you can see that the back vertices were not selected. All right. The next option is shrink. I'll select a vertex. We have grow and shrink. Grow essentially means to expand. Look, one vertex is selected. When I click it, the 4 surrounding vertices get selected. And if I click it again, this selection keeps growing more and more. If I click shrink, the exact opposite happens, reverting back step by step. And if I press it one last time, even that original single vertex gets deselected. All right, we have ring and loop, which become active in the edge mode. As well as by vertex. Let me turn off this ignore backfacing checkbox and select by vertex. You see, if I turn off by vertex and click on a spot, it selects a single edge for me. But if I turn on by vertex and click on a vertex, it selects all the edges connected to that vertex for me. And shrink and grow function exactly the same way here as they did before. Now, what is ring and what is loop? Watch. I'll select an edge. Sorry, let me turn off by vertex. I'll select an edge and then apply ring to it. You see how it selected all the edges parallel to it all the way around? Now I can move them around if I want, or perform any other operation on them, or even scale them up, scale them down, or even work with them along another axis. It lets me easily select all of them. Otherwise, without this tool, I would have had to pick them one by one, or draw a selection window to grab all of them inside it. So that was ring, which grabbed parallel edges around the loop for me. Now, what is loop? Unlike ring, loop selects around the volume, by grabbing the edges that are connected end to end, completing this entire selection for me. And then I can apply any changes to it. Loop and ring also have some shortcuts. If I just come here and double-click on one of the edges, it performs a loop selection. And if I select an edge, hold down Shift, and select the neighboring edge right next to it, it automatically performs a ring selection for me. Now, if I hold down Control, I can manually add more selections, and it works the exact same way in Vertex and Polygon modes as well. And if I hold down Alt, I can subtract from my selection, just like how we selected and deselected whole objects, whether by clicking or drawing a selection window to remove them from the selection. Very well. That covers the selections and transformations inside the Edit Poly environment. Alright, I added an element here earlier. Let me just give two explanations. For this element that I selected, just as I attached it, right next to it is a detach option. I can detach it, and this dialog box opens up, allowing me to detach to element or detach as clone. And I can also specify a name for it. So when this dialog opens up for me, I can type in the name of the new volume right there. If I check Detach to Element, the naming option gets disabled, and this piece just stays right here as an element, though it was already an element before. This feature is actually useful when you separate a few polygons from your main geometry and want to detach them. With this option, you can keep those polygons inside your main object, but functioning as a completely new element. I'll uncheck this. We can also select Detach as Clone, which creates a clone and a copy of it, preserving this element as it is, while generating a separate copy of it inside the scene. Well, I don't really want to do that right now. I just wanted to show you this dialog box. Okay, I'll click OK, and as you see, it is now a completely independent object from our Edit Poly volume. Alright, let me explain border to you as well, which is our third sub-object level. If I go ahead and remove one of these polygons using the delete key, it gives me an empty space that has no polygon in it. This is a border, which you can select using the shortcut number 3 on your keyboard. And when you click on it, it gets selected. Alright, and obviously, the operations we performed on the other levels can also be applied to this one, such as moving, like rotating, and even scaling. Alright, so that covers border. Work with these sections, practice them, the shortcuts, the few selection options I explained, and working with transforms, meaning moving, scaling, rotating, ring, and loop, so that we can move on to the next parts of our work in the next session. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Until the next tutorial, take care and God bless.